Hi there, it's Stephanie from Mommy Standard Time, where we save minutes and savor moments. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Vlogtober. I am posting a video every day in October about lots of various things. But normally on this channel, I like to share ways to save time on those mundane tasks of life like grocery shopping, meal planning, those types of things, so that you have more time to savor with your family. But today, I don't know, I feel like I had a couple of false starts when it came to YouTube. I would film for a little while and then have to take a break because life got crazy, because at the end of the day, my goal is to savor time with my family. And so family always comes first. So I'm sorry, but YouTube, sometimes I have to have a little hiatus. But we had a few experiences during my period of time off the last few months. And I thought, oh my goodness, I need to tell everybody on YouTube about this. And so in order to help us get through some of these stories, I know it's not super interesting to sit here and look at me talk. So instead, I'm actually going to walk you through my favorite banana muffin recipe. It's from Sally's Baking Addiction. And while we do that, I'm going to tell you the story of the rabbits. It's quite the story. So while I'm getting everything pulled out, I thought I would give you some of the backstory. So our family lives in just a regular subdivision, but there's a whole row of houses that are behind the rest of the subdivision, and you can only access them through a fire access lane. And so we live in one of those homes, and we are pushed up against the hillside, which is really nice. No one can build behind us. We have a nice view. The only downside is that we tend to attract a lot of critters: snakes, rock chucks, turkeys, deer, and lots of rabbits. So before we dive into the story, let's talk a little bit about this recipe. I am doubling the recipe today, so I will link below the original recipe, which is 1 dozen muffins, and you're going to want more than 1 dozen, so I'm doubling it. So in this bowl today, I'm putting 3 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and a half teaspoon of nutmeg. So while I'm getting that in there, let me tell you about our first rabbit sighting. So one day this was a few months ago, the kids came in and said, "Mom, there's a rabbit in the backyard. The dog's freaking out. We're afraid she's going to eat the rabbit." So I went out there to investigate, try and figure out where this rabbit had come in from, and realized, oh, there it is. The dog's been working on this massive hole next to the fence. So I made a mental note that we needed to take care of that. But then in the meantime, we needed to get this rabbit out of the backyard. So I turned my attention to the rabbit, trying to gently coax it out of the yard. And it was freaking out. It was trying to jump over the 6-foot fence. And he was getting pretty close, but it would just keep going back and forth from corner to corner of the fence, trying to get out, acting like it was trapped. And I'm thinking, rabbit, you got in here, just go back the way you came. But it wouldn't. And so I finally was going to just go open the gate. So just taking those couple of steps forward convinced the rabbit, it's go time. And it went back the way it came in. And then that was that. We ended up having a couple of other rabbit sightings. And then eventually I was like, okay, we've got to get this hole dealt with. So we spent an entire day getting the hole filled, putting fresh landscape fabric down, finding a place to go get landscape rocks, getting those, unloading them, the whole ordeal. But we finally got the hole filled, and we thought we were finished with the rabbit business. And then real quick, for wet ingredients, we have 6 ripe bananas, 2 eggs at room temperature, 2 teaspoons of vanilla. We have 12 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to melt that. And then we have our flour mixture. But then not pictured, we have a 1/4 cup of milk and a 1 1/3 cups of brown sugar. One thing I love about this recipe is that everything just goes right in the KitchenAid. I don't have to mash bananas. I just plop them in the KitchenAid and let her fly. Okay, now that the KitchenAid is doing all the work, it's time to talk about the rest of this rabbit story. So a few weeks after the adult rabbit sightings had ended, my daughter came running in and saying, "The dog has a bunny in its mouth and won't let it go." And I went outside to check things out, and it was the tiniest little bunny. and I don't know if it had died from shock or if Lou had caused some internal injuries, because there weren't any like external injuries, but the bunny had passed. And so I was like, well, what on earth do we do here? And out of the corner of my eye, I noticed some movement, and there was another baby bunny. And so I realized, oh my goodness, this is some sort of nest or burrow that the dog has found and disturbed. And so I'm quickly realizing, okay, we need to find if there are any more bunnies out here. And so underneath the garden boxes, we had this pile of leaves and debris that it was just hard to get to. And so over the winter, it had accumulated leaves, and there was even like a piece of cardboard. And when I lifted the cardboard, I noticed that there was another bunny there sleeping. And so at this point, I'm like, I have no idea what to do. I tried calling hubby, and he was working. So I called the Fish and Wildlife Department, and I explained what was going on. They were so kind and so understanding of me because I was so distraught. They told me to go ahead and try to get the other bunny back to its nest, burrow, whatever you want to call it, and that the mom would come back. And so Minnie, who is the bunny wrangler, apparently, I dealt with the dead bunny, and then she wanted to come out and help me get the live bunny back to its burrow. And so she came out, and bless her heart, because I was freaking out about it. So I wasn't able to deal with it. And so she came out, she carefully grabbed the little bunny and put it back in the burrow. And then after we got through all of that, I thought to myself, but we closed off the fence. Like, we got all that dealt with. So is the mom really going to come back? So before we get to the end of the story, I just wanted to tell you about baking these muffins. So you fill the liners 2/3 of the way full. I like to use a large cookie scoop or ice cream scoop, whatever you want to call it. And it pretty much gets it where it, as full as it needs to be. I had some trouble this morning. I don't know what was going on, but they weren't super even. But anyway, that's usually the perfect amount. If I usually do like a heaping scoopful. And then it fills 24 tins perfectly when you double the recipe. And then you bake it at 425 degrees for 5 minutes. And that gives it like a nice crown to it. And then you lower, without taking them out or anything, you lower the temperature to 350 degrees and then bake for an additional 16 to 18 minutes. So we looked it up online and realized that really these bunnies were probably old enough to be in the wild on their own because their ears were up and they were capable of hopping. It wasn't like super strong hopping, but they were doing okay. So I wasn't too concerned about guarding the nest for a really long time, but we did keep the dog on a leash every time we took her to the backyard. And then my daughter would check on them every day without fail. And then one day they were gone. And so we like to believe that they hopped away and were happy campers, because there were a few spots in the fence where those tiny little bunnies could have gotten out. So there you have it, the story of our bunny adventure and these banana muffins. So I'm not gonna lie, I got distracted when I was making these and totally overcooked them. But you'll notice that they are still looking delicious when I open them up, even though they have a pretty thick crust on them, I guess you could say. But that's the beauty of these muffins, is they're pretty foolproof. Even overcooked, my family still devoured them. Well, thanks so much for watching this kind of odd video, a story and a snack, I guess you could call it. But if you want to continue to follow along with our Vlogtober shenanigans, please consider subscribing. Click the notification bell so that you're notified of our upcoming videos. And I will see you guys tomorrow.